Welcome to Motherland Origins, where we tell honest stories of Africa. On today's episode, we examine a continent that loves and worships the game of football, yet manages to fall short on the global stage despite having abundant talents to do otherwise. This is a story of football in Africa. For years, African football has inspired millions of Africans by being a source of joy, unity, and sometimes liberation from the jaws of poverty. But behind the packed stadiums, roaring crowds, and dreams of glory, another game is often played behind the scenes, one hidden from supporters and built on secrecy, influence, and corruption. All corruption in African football is an open secret. Few understand its implications. One of the biggest corruption scandals in African football happened as recently as 2018, when one of Africa's most respected football administrators sat at the height of his power. Kwesi Nyantakyi was not only the president of the Ghana Football Association, but also a vice president of CAF, the Confederation of African Football, and an influential member of the FIFA Council. His voice carried weight across the continent, and many believed he represented the future of African football. But while his public image remained untarnished, an undercover investigation was quietly unfolding. For more than 2 years, renowned Ghanaian investigative journalist Anas Aremeyao Anas and his team worked in complete secrecy. Hidden cameras were planted, meetings were recorded, and conversations that were never meant to leave private rooms were captured on film. The result was a documentary called Number 12, and its release stunned the world of football. Footage from the documentary appeared to show referees accepting envelopes filled with cash and football officials negotiating payments in exchange for favorable treatment. Integrity, the very foundation of competition, had been put up for sale. Then came the biggest revelation of all. The cameras appeared to capture Kwesi Nyantakyi himself accepting thousands of dollars from undercover investigators posing as wealthy investors. During the conversations, he allegedly suggested he could use his influence to help secure government contracts through his connections to Ghana's highest political offices. The reaction was immediate. Public outrage swept across Ghana. Sponsors withdrew their support, and the Ghanaian government dissolved the country's football association, bringing the domestic game to a standstill. The National League was suspended, while FIFA eventually banned Nyantakyi from football for violating its ethics code. One investigation had exposed corruption stretching from referees on local pitches to one of the most powerful figures in African football. To many, it seemed impossible that another scandal of similar magnitude could emerge so soon, but it did. Only a year later, attention shifted from Ghana to the headquarters of African football itself. At the center of the storm was CAF President Ahmad Ahmad. As the man responsible for governing football across 54 African nations, Ahmad occupied one of the most influential positions in world football. Expectations were high when he took office in 2017, promising greater transparency and reform after decades of criticism directed at CAF. Instead, fresh allegations began to surface. Questions were raised over contracts worth hundreds of thousands of dollars that had allegedly been awarded without proper tender processes. Reports emerged of CAF funds being used for luxury expenses and gifts for football officials. Investigators also examined claims that organizational resources had been diverted for personal and political purposes. But perhaps the most defining moment came in June 2019, when, while attending the FIFA Congress in Paris, Ahmad Ahmad was detained by French authorities for questioning. The FIFA's ethics committee had launched an investigation. After examining the evidence, it concluded that Ahmad had breached multiple ethical obligations, including misusing his position and improperly handling CAF funds. He received a lengthy suspension from football, though part of the sanction was later reduced on appeal, that some allegations could not be fully substantiated. The damage, however, had already been done. For the second time in just a few years, one of African football's highest-ranking leaders and consequently, the respective football governing bodies they led had fallen amid allegations of corruption. The two incidents above are only a few of the allegations of corruption within African football, and specifically within the football associations of several African countries. Scandals involving bribery, disappearance of sponsorship revenues, unexplained expenditures, political interferences, and little to no financial accountability have become the norm. Yet most Africans do not understand the direct consequences of such corruption and end up blaming players and coaches for poor outings at tournaments, such as was done during the ongoing FIFA World Cup. The highest finishes from African teams during any FIFA World Cup tournament include Morocco reaching the semi-finals in 2022, and Ghana, Senegal, and Cameroon reaching the quarter-finals in 2010, 2002, and 1990 respectively. In the ongoing 2026 World Cup, 10 African teams qualified for the tournament, but only 2 made it to the round of 16, and only Morocco managed to make it to the quarter-finals before getting eliminated by France, one of the favorites to win the tournament. Morocco's recent successes on football's biggest stage are not a coincidence, and it would be somewhat of a miracle if any other African countries were to perform at such levels, and the reasons are apparent. While Morocco has invested somewhere between $2 to $3 billion into developing the country's football within the last 10 years, the investments of other African countries fall short, with South Africa and Egypt falling behind with investments of about $1 billion over the same period, while Nigeria, Senegal, and Ghana follow with investments well below $500 million over the same period. Based on the level of corruption and lack of accountability within the football governing bodies of the last 3 countries mentioned, there is no guarantee that the quoted sums have even been spent judiciously. For the sake of comparison, England, Spain, and France have invested closer to $10 billion over the last 10 years. But of course, it takes more than throwing money at a problem to solve it. Morocco ensured that its money was put to good use by developing and sticking by a long-term vision that focuses on revolutionizing the entire footballing ecosystem within the country. A large part of investments go into building and developing footballing infrastructure, such as the Mohammed VI Football Academy. The country also recruits talent in the diaspora aggressively by ensuring regular contact from a young age, building relationships with players and their families, clarifying and selling their football projects to players, and generally ensuring they feel valued. This aggressive recruitment ensures that the country fields players who are genuinely proud to play for their country, rather than those who do so simply because they lack options. Morocco proves that while it is important to have talent, success is only achieved when said talent is properly developed and utilized. Becoming a successful footballing nation is not rocket science, as the best footballing nations in the world replicate the same template. It is painful that African football is often disregarded by the international community as subpar. And while the immediate reaction of any proud African is to defensively reject such notions, we must be truly reflective and introspective, asking ourselves why we fail to prove a point on the world's biggest stage. If we intend to go toe-to-toe and shoulder-to-shoulder with the best, then we must curb corruption and be intentional about the growth and development of our football as a continent. We must refrain from lazy rhetoric such as our players having weak mentalities and our coaches being tactically inept, because if anything, the actual shock is their being able to achieve the little they do, while the bodies and officials that govern with corruption and incompetence fail to ignite the empowerment that would allow the continent attain the glorious heights it is truly capable of. Corruption must be curbed, and in its place, long-term vision, strategy, and consistent and disciplined adoption must be embraced. If you enjoyed this episode of Motherland Origins, make sure to like and share our videos while subscribing to our various social media platforms. Thank you for watching. See you soon.